Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm really pleased to be here with County Exec Warren Evans and Washtenaw County Chair Sue Shrink, Police Chief. Actually, James White was going to join us. I know he had a commitment that he couldn't get here. Lawrence Vinson, our community voice of the community. Thank you. First Assistant Chief Bettison, Commissioner Tim Killeen, State Rep Scott, State Rep Kavanaugh. I saw State Senator Chang here as well, and of course my good friend Sheriff Washington. Thank you all for being here. It is great to be here at Baldock Park as we continue working together to help communities recover and rebuild from the flooding and the heavy rain in Southeast Michigan over the last couple of weeks. And it's been a trying time. I know it's been unimaginably difficult for so many people. Extreme weather has hurt a lot of families and has caused a lot of damage to property, to individuals' homes, as well as businesses. It has swept away cherished items and memories. And so I'm glad to be here to have a chance to talk a little bit about what we're going to do to help people get back on their feet right now and what we're going to do to upgrade our infrastructure so we are prepared to keep people safe in the future. So I first want to start with what we have done at the state level so far. Immediately, I declared a state of emergency to ensure that state resources could get out the door as quickly as possible. We assembled a group, including Wayne County officials, members of the City of Detroit team, representatives from FEMA, GLEWA, the Army Corps of Engineers, members of our congressional delegation and beyond, so that we could coordinate resources for people in need. We also worked with the Biden administration to assure that we got a quick federal disaster declaration so we could bring in FEMA workers and employees to help on the ground. And we have requested $50 million in federal assistance so that we could repair damaged highways and purchase backup pump station generators. We know all of these things are important components to recovery. We've got much more to do, but we are working day and night to make sure that we get help for Michigan families. All of our actions have one goal in mind, and that is to help people whose homes have been damaged, whose lives have been disrupted. We're always going to put Michigan families first. We put our people at the center of everything we do. We work tirelessly to get folks the help they need, where they need it, as quickly as possible. So here's what we're doing to help families in particular. My administration has partnered with financial institutions across the state to announce a plan that will allow impacted families to delay their monthly mortgage payments. This is in a way to free up some cash so that they can cover expenses from anything from groceries to gas to starting the process of recovery. The Department of Health and Human Services is also offering cash assistance directly to families to help them pay for a range of expenses, including home repairs to utilities. And on Monday, I signed a bill that provides $10 million in emergency relief funding to families hit hardest by the flooding. So today I'm here to lay out how those dollars are going to be utilized to help Michiganders right now. And this is a work product of a number of stakeholders that came together to help inform how we can best use these dollars to really help people where they are right now. So the $10 million will go to families who have already gone through the Federal Small Business Administration and FEMA aid process and did not receive as much support as they needed to rebuild. So it's essentially to fill that gap. We're sending the funds to local governments, and the local governments will distribute the dollars in their communities to folks with the greatest need. The dollars for each community, whether it's in Wayne County or Washtenaw County or the City of Detroit, will be based on initial damage assessments. Now, there's already 30,000 people signed up for federal assistance, and we know that number is going to grow between now and September 15th when it closes. So while $10 million is a good start and it will make a meaningful improvement for a lot of people, we know that we've got a bigger infrastructure challenge and that our work is far from over. The legislature and I came together and delivered these $10 million, and I'm confident that we can continue our partnership and provide more assistance to help families continue to recover. And so we should work together to increase assistance and services that we can offer families directly on top of the federal aid that they will receive. We're going to put the people of Michigan first, as we always do. Now, these communities have been battered by unprecedented weather events. and we're going to do everything we can to help them. The work we've done will help families get back on their feet, but we're not stopping there. Excuse me. My allergies have been just miserable this year. We've got to make long-term lasting investments in infrastructure, and we have to build our infrastructure back better than before. And I have a plan for that. Under the Michigan Clean Water Plan, $250 million to upgrade drinking water and sewage and sanitation. Excuse me. $40 million to help communities rebuild their infrastructure for resiliency. Sorry. And the infrastructure plan that is moving in Washington, D.C. is going to be another continued support for our work. So the reality is weather events like this are happening more and more often. We have to build our infrastructure to meet the current needs. We also have to work to reduce our carbon footprint. We're working on all of these fronts. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lawrence Vincent, who is going to talk a little bit about this community in which we are standing, this beautiful community that's been through a lot. Thank you. Lawrence?
Thank you, Governor, for that briefing. I'm so proud to be a part of East English Village, which is the community that I represent. I have several of my neighbors here, and they can vouch for the damage that we received on the 16th of the month of last month. And when I say damage, I'm talking about refrigerators, washing machines, furnaces, major appliances that no one ever thought that would be on the curbs of each home from East English Village to Grosse Pointe. Our governor has committed these millions of dollars to substitute where FEMA will not be able to give the monies that is needed for all of the neighbors in our community. I applaud her, and I hope and I know for sure she will be working diligently and close with us to make sure that we get every dollar that we need. Thank you.
Thank you,
Lauren. On behalf of Washtenaw County, I would also like to thank our governor for putting Michigan families first. Although Washtenaw County only experienced a fraction of the damage of Wayne County, for the families who experience flooding, it is devastating. Many of the families do not have the savings or the resources to make things whole without assistance by our state and federal government. And so I very much appreciate Governor Whitmer's support and also the President Biden administration's support to help our families recover from this devastating flooding. We're also working on a climate action plan to address the catastrophic weather events that are becoming more and more common. And again, I appreciate the governor's support because this is work that we cannot do alone. We need to work together, and with our governor, we are. So thank you.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Warren Evans, the Wayne County Executive, and I just want to reiterate what others have said and just indicate that, you know, as I see the other state reps here and leaders, one of the things we are doing much better in this region is we are working more closely together. And so I can say, you know, the governor's told you about the $10 million, filling in the gaps. That's all critical. That's important. What's as important to me is I always get a call or the governor responds to calls when we have emergency here. I don't care if it's the pandemic. I don't care if it's the flooding. And that makes an awful lot of difference because you can say lots of things, but it's important is where your heart is. And if your actions kind of follow your heart, then you're in pretty good shape. And so I would just like to say to the governor, I appreciate that support in so many ways, so many times. You know, I'm elected to represent 1.8 million people, not just the city of Detroit, but 2/3 of the counties outside of Detroit. The devastation that's occurred in Dearborn Heights, Lincoln Park, a number of other places are just as critical to those families as they are everywhere else. And so I think the governor totally understands that. We appreciate that. I certainly appreciate my law enforcement partners from my other life back here, Sheriff Raphael Washington and Todd Bettison, who's an assistant chief in Detroit. They're all public servants by nature. And so when we have a governor that's supportive and a legislature that's working hard to try to get things going our way. We're greatly appreciative, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. We have just a few minutes of media question and answer with the governor about flooding relief or our other wonderful speakers.
Governor, can you comment, please, about the reports in regard to the electrical outages and people knowing days in advance about the east side pumping stations compromised? And some are dubbing this beyond the once-in-a-century storm, natural, man-made, the issue of the human error component here?
I want to get more facts before I make too great a public comment on that. I will just say this. This has been an incredibly tough time, right? We're coming out of a year and a half after a pandemic. We are grappling with climate change and old infrastructure colliding. Regardless, we need to understand what happened. We need to make sure that it never happens again, where there are things that we do control. We also know that climate change is a major contributing factor, and old infrastructure is as well. So I'm continuing to focus on, eliminating the carbon footprint in Michigan, continuing to focus on ensuring that we rebuild our infrastructure in a way that is resilient for current, facts and truth about where we are as a society. It was built, decades ago. It needs to be rebuilt. But we need to understand all the aspects of what contributed to the flooding and take appropriate action. But at this juncture, I think there's more to know, more facts to come out, and I want to make sure I know them all before I say much more. Thanks.
Governor, you said that there's 30,000 people that are on the federal list for funds. How are those people going to be prioritized with the $10 million? And then secondly, has your administration made moves to get kind of funding for people who were affected in July floods and maybe not the June ones?
So the state's role really is that of intermediary and convener, right? So the federal government will be the primary source of resources, and that's why we're so glad for the leadership and partnership of Congresswoman Dingell and Tlaib, Congresswoman Lawrence. They've been working incredibly hard to make sure that this doesn't fall off the radar in D.C. And in fact, the president moved very quickly for the declaration. We will be adding to the federal relief this $10 million to help people who got some federal relief but not enough, or were left out for some reason or another. But the dollars will go to the communities, and the communities will be the ones that will be dispersing these resources.
Governor, you've been focused on trying to incentivize people to get vaccinated. It sounds like the federal government is going to require its employees to do so. We've seen hospitals and some local governments take that step as well. What do you think Michigan government's role is in requiring that for state employees or general residents?
I think when it comes to state employees, that the vaccination rates probably mirror the general public. That's what our initial reporting seems to reflect. We're going to continue to encourage employees to vaccinate. If they are not vaccinated, they're required to wear masks when they are in the workplace. That is commensurate with a lot of workplaces across the state, and I think that that's the right policy. But what I know is, as we see this Delta variant grow and we see younger people getting sick from it, we see hospitalizations that are, overwhelmingly amongst the unvaccinated, we know that we still have the best tool to fight this virus, and that is getting vaccinated. And so we're working with our community partners to get into people's homes, helping them register. I was over at Quicken the other day and understanding how they've been reaching out to individuals and signing people up for in-home visits for their vaccination. So it's got to be all hands on deck, and that's why the sweepstakes is one tool, but working closely with communities to get more people vaccinated is critical. We're north of 63%. It's better than many places, but it's not quite to what scientists would tell us where we need to be, and that's why we're going to keep at it.
Is a mandate off the table then, or is that something that you would consider?
There is, other states that have acted, they've not issued mandates. What they have said is you're either vaccinated or you're testing regularly. Our policy is vaccinated. If you're not, you are required to be wearing a mask when you're inside the workplace.
Any further questions on flooding assistance from press?
Yeah, I do. So one quick question, one follow-up. In terms of people, this additional state aid who want to apply for that, how would they go about doing that? And then I also wanted to just make sure it's eligible for people who didn't receive any FEMA aid?
Yes.
Okay.
But people need to have gone through the process, right? So through the SBA and through FEMA. And then to show that you've been through that process and that you have needs that were still unmet going through your local government, that's who will be dispersing the funds.
So you would contact your local government?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What would be some reasons someone either wouldn't get the full amount that they're seeking or would be denied, I guess, outright?
You know, I can't speak to how FEMA makes determinations. I know that documentation is really important. That's why we've encouraged people to clean up their basements, but to keep all their receipts, to take pictures, to keep those documentations so that they can support the applications. And I think that's an important part of trying to make sure people are made whole where we can.
We can take one more question. Or none.
Are there
All right.
conversations?
This is why we put you all in the sun. Wear you out. Yes.
Are there conversations to help the victims of the July floods with further funding?
So yes, and we are moving forward. I know that Farmington Hills, Southfield, areas that were hit hard, that were not a part of the initial flooding, are areas that we are looking to work with and to get some support to.
That's all the time we have.
All right, thank you. Have a good one. Drink some water. Take your